Chapter 841. Su Wenkai pointed towards the direction where the white robe left. In the end, it still needs Mr. Chan to say so. Are you talking about my father? Chan Due pondered strenuously. If he doesn't choose me, who else could he choose? That can't be certain. Su Wenkai raised his eyebrows, speaking with concern. After all, the Lord doesn't only have one wife, and naturally you won't be the only son in the future. It's really uncertain who will be chosen as the crown prince. Then tell me quickly. Chan Due was anxious, gritting his teeth. How can my father be convinced to choose me? First of all, you must not defy the Lord's teachings for you. Su Wenkai said. Secondly, since ancient times, people have always favored benevolent and virtuous individuals to be the crown prince. So you need to learn to be, after a session of preaching. Chan Due felt quite annoyed listening, was quite unable to grasp the concept of benevolence, but managed to keep it in mind, somewhat cautious in his actions. Outside the city, Court Central Army. Half a month has already passed. Prince Qin stood outside the tent, pacing anxiously. If this continues, Chan the Hunter will bring his men to fight back. Why hasn't the city been taken yet? Alas! A cultivator from Shangyun's sect sighed heavily. Don't mention it. The city protection array in Kunyang City. Every time it seems about to be destroyed, their array master always manages to repair it in time, always hanging by a thread, but never dying. Indeed, my sect's losses this time are extremely severe. Just today, senior brother Yuan perished on Kunyang City Wall. Moreover, I heard that senior brother Yuan fell at the hands of that Chen's son. How old is that little brat? Clearly a little beast, maybe an old demon reincarnated. How else could he be so cunning and vicious at such a young age? Everyone. Eunuch Huang Hong appeared. The emperor summons. Within a cup of tea's time, officials and cultivators gathered inside the central army tent. Emperor Longqing sat cross-legged at a high place, overlooking everyone and the model, his tone prolonged with a hint of angry mockery. Generals, immortal masters, gentlemen, the time has passed over 10 days. How did you originally guarantee to me? Calm your anger, your majesty, Dan Liangcheng explained. The array master inside the city is somewhat peculiar. Kunyang being defendable until now is at least 80% due to him. Before the battle, our sect received information that Guiyuan sect would send an extraordinary person. Now it seems this person is at least one of the top array masters of Guiyuan sect. If not limited by heaven and earth, he could even set up a Tier 3 formation. Oh! Emperor Longqing leaned forward slightly, questioning word by word. According to you, is there no way? With a way nevertheless. Dan Liangqing frowned and continued. Unless the formation is based on spirit veins, otherwise, it has a limit, and Kunyang is no exception. Starting tonight, I will use the last batch of middle-grade spirit stones entirely, in combination with that jade seal. Surely within 2 days, the great formation will collapse. Still need 2 days? Nya Yuan, the third senior brother, whose injuries hadn't healed, worriedly said. In doing so, I'm afraid my junior brother will lead the rebel army back. That wouldn't matter. Dan Liangcheng picked up a bamboo flute, pointing at the model, calmly said. According to my judgment, in such a short time, Chan Sansi could only bring no more than 50,000 reinforcements, and they would only appear at Bagong Mountain, crossing the river through the canyon of Yongjia Prefecture on that one road. Preparing defenses sufficiently, there's no need to worry too much about them. After all, it comes down to direct confrontation. There aren't many tricks to play. Then it's 2 days. Emperor Longqing's voice was calm as a well but bore imperial majesty. If Kunyang City is not taken after 2 days, Dan Liangqing, you don't need to think about returning to Shangyun's sect. Dan Liangqing understood the implied threat to his life but knew better than to resist in such conditions. I accept the command. Night. He then took out the last batch of spirit stones. The mystic jade golden bamboo in his hand nearly raged as he swung. 1 command for dry trigrams northwest will hold. 2 commands for water trigrams general. 3 commands for gen trigrams northeast spirit. For commands for trigrams, Jupiter Lord. Sounds of spells seemed to fall from the ninth heaven. The glorified spirit light of the 81 heavenly pillars shone greatly. Thousands of soldiers rushed towards the city wall under the formation's blessing. Above the night, the imperial jade seal added more divine might. Layers of golden light dropped like mountain-opening giant axe upon the surface of the mysterious armor Xuanfeng formation. Ling Kuei attacked to break the formation. Emperor Longqing in Taoist robe stood beside the imperial jade seal. The entire Kunyang city ushered in the final moment. Boom, boom, boom. Even through barriers, everyone could feel the earth shaking. Oh dear! Huang Laojiu sat heavily on the ground, clutching his old waist, grimacing. I can't hold it anymore. I'm done for. Chao Huan hurriedly asked, What do you mean by this? At most another 2 days. Huang Laojiu's voice was hoarse as he spoke. The formation can't sustain anymore. Where's Mr. Chen? Shangguan Haichang quickly grabbed the Beiliang general, inquiring, Mr. Chen has been gone for half a month. He should be back soon, right? Bagong Mountain, Yongjia Prefecture. This place guarded the tributary of the Fei River passing through the Central Plains battlefield. But there were not many soldiers garrisoned in the city, with a total of only over 8,000. Cultivator Zhong Fan received orders, should any disturbances appear, to immediately retreat after understanding the situation and report back. Another deep night. He was concentrating on cultivating spells when a scout suddenly barged in. Immortal Master Zhong. It's bad, Immortal Master Zhong. The rebel army has attacked. Chun Sansi leads Qing country's reinforcements and have returned. Chapter 842. Zhong Fan looked up and said, How many people? 200,000. The scout said anxiously. At least 200,000 plus countless immortal masters. Nonsense. Zhong Fan said disdainfully. Senior Brother Dan personally said, in such a short time, the maximum number of troops they can mobilize will not exceed 50,000. As for the cultivators, Yunding Palace, like us, needs to rely on sealing gaps. How many people can they send? Immortal Master Zhong. The scout stammered as he explained. What I said is true. If you don't believe me, Immortal Master can see for yourself. Zhong Fan snorted coldly, stepped on his flying sword, and soared into the sky. He hadn't flown far when his body trembled. Looking out, on the dark earth, a massive army was marching through the wilderness, heading straight for Yongjia Prefecture. It was impossible to discern the exact number of people, only shadows moving like an ocean of troops. In the star-filled sky, silhouettes were flying on swords. Yunding Palace has plotted for a long time. Zhong Fan gritted his teeth, ignored the defenders inside the city, and turned to flee. He hadn't flown far when he felt a murderous intent drawing closer and closer. Looking back, a white robe was chasing on a leaf-shaped flying device, speeding up with the addition of various talismans. Damn it! Zhong Fan was horrified. He immediately summoned his life-bound flying sword, his hands forming seals at such speed they left afterimages, and finally, he didn't hesitate to consume his lifespan, forcing a drop of essence blood from between his eyebrows onto the sword. Instantly, his life-bound flying sword erupted with bloody spiritual light, and as the sword finger dropped, it shot toward the white robe with a piercing sound, resembling the moonlight of a crimson moon in the night. Zhong Fan paid a huge price just to stall the pursuit of the white robe, even if only for a moment, as reaching the opposite bank would get him reinforcements. He was at Qi refining perfection, theoretically on the same level as the opponent, and even if there was a difference in strength, the opponent couldn't ignore his full-force strike. But the white robe neither dodged nor blocked the bloody sword. It was only when the sword tip was just half an inch from his throat that he suddenly extended 2 fingers. Buzz! Accompanied by the wail of metal. The flying sword was firmly clamped by the white robe's fingers, unable to advance even a fraction. This crushing of realms. This person has advanced to true power middle stage. Not only that, an even more astonishing event occurred. Under the starry sky, The white robe's right hand flickered with divine light, appearing with a golden longbow shining with spiritual brilliance, while his left hand effortlessly suppressed the flying sword, slowly turning it around. The sword hilt was placed on the bow, the sword tip aimed forward, then pulled the bowstring. Was this archery or sword shooting? After many battles, Zhong Fan naturally knew the opponent excelled in the use of magic artifact bow and arrow, but he never imagined even a flying sword could be used as an arrow. And it was his life-bound flying sword. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Zhong Fan's eyes widened in rage, desperately trying to regain control of the flying sword, but it was all in vain. He could only watch helplessly as the opponent under the stars drew the bow like a full moon, the bowstring stretching to the extreme before explosively returning. Buzz! The flying sword carrying crimson and fire element truth tore through the sky, charging forward with speed far surpassing sword-controlled killing, almost untraceable. Zhong Fan used various leaping techniques and art of evasion, shifting laterally through several positions, but he could not shake off the flying sword. Despair filled him as he felt the sharp, murderous intent continually drawing closer, until a sword pierced his heart. Chapter 843 Duel. The bow feels a bit unbalanced. Chun Sansi looked at the body plummeting straight down in front of him, weighed the golden bow a few times, and felt it a bit lacking in heft before turning to head towards Yongjia Prefecture. The suddenly appearing loyalist army was as unexpected to the defenders of Yongjia Prefecture as if it had emerged from the earth. With the seated cultivator dead, they immediately crumbled, lacking even overall command, scattering like birds and beasts. During the process, Liangshan's troops and Sima Yao's forces pursued them, nearly annihilating the 8,000 defenders, with only a sparse few managing to cross the tributary of the Fei River alive. With thunderous momentum, they occupied Yongjia Prefecture with almost no casualties, facing the million-strong enemy across the river. Commander! Sima Yao ascended the city wall and bowed respectfully. The entire army is ready. When shall we cross the river? What should we do next? Send people to cut wood and prepare to build a pontoon bridge on the bank. Chun Sansi said calmly, "Tonight at midnight, the entire army will cross the river and directly charge the enemy formation." Directly? Sima Yao had just voiced his question when he quickly shut his mouth. Subordinate understands. Is there anything else? Chun Sansi, seeing him hesitating to leave, softly asked. Commander Chun. Suddenly, Sima Yao knelt on one knee, clasping his fists with a resounding voice. I am willing to follow the commander through fire and flood without hesitation. This is the battlefield, where life and death are shared. Saying this here, however, carries much deeper implications. It's a pledge of allegiance. You! Chun Sansi examined him. What do you mean by this? Commander Chun. Sima Yao frankly said, the loyalist court is filled with mediocre mortals, unworthy of collaborating with. From this point forward, the Sima family is willing to follow your lead. Sima Yao. Under the shadow of the trees, the expression on the white-robed figure was indistinct. Set aside your thoughts and focus on the task at hand. Sima Yao hastily replied in reverence. I understand. The white-robed figure said no more, turning to leave. Sima Yao knelt on the ground and only slowly rose after the figure was completely out of sight. Father! Sima Qi and Sima Lan, standing not far away, looked puzzled. What? The white-haired Sima Yao stood up somewhat stiffly, softly brushing the dust off his clothes. Do you think it's disgraceful for your father to kneel to a young man in his 20s? Or do you think we pledged allegiance to the wrong person? Or perhaps both? The two sons remained silent, clearly feeling it was both. Fools! Sima Yao angrily rebuked. You've spent many years in the Sky-Water continent, and yet you judge a person by their age? How many in the Sky-Water continent can progress from the early to the middle stage of true power in 2 years? And what do you think we are to Guiyuan sect? What resources can we expect in the future? Don't add flowers to brocade. Send charcoal in snowy weather. True power early-stage martial artists. To Guiyuan sect, they are nothing, but to Bailiang, they are extremely scarce, much less an entire family. But, Sima Lan asked in confusion, but with life and death at Fei River currently unknown, isn't that a bit rushed? I know. Sima Qi took over. Precisely because life and death are unknown, it is our opportunity to pledge allegiance. If we miss it, there won't be another chance. And if we lose? Sima Lan asked anxiously, even if Chan Sansi succeeds in breaking through. The other side still has Long Qing and Ling Kuei, plus the 6 Ding and 6 Jia Great Formation formed by a 1,000,000-strong army. In my opinion, the chances of winning are perhaps less than 50%. Lanner. Sima Yao squinted slightly. After the war begins, stay in the rear to control the situation. Do not rush forward. If you find the situation unfavorable, immediately take the most qualified young talents in the clan and flee the eastern continent. Aye. Sima Lan, although troubled, eventually clasped his fists. Understood. With instructions given, Sima Yao stood with his hands behind his back, gazing at the opposite bank, where tens of miles away, the dark army and the great formation of spiritual power could be seen. In his mind, he recalled the white-robed figure's deployment. Tomorrow at midnight, should they just rush through? Actually, in his view, such an act was akin to walking into the lion's den, virtually courting death. Yet this was the only chance for the Sima family to establish themselves on the eastern continent. Sima Yao, too, could only stake his life on the gamble. Across the river, Imperial Army, Central Army tent. Major trouble. Your Majesty. Major trouble. Several surviving defenders of the city stumbled into the tent, kneeling in panic and shouting. Chan Sansi has led his army to Yongjia Prefecture, and immortal Master Zhongfan was killed on the spot. Out of 8,000 brothers, only a few of us made it back alive. Before the screen, Emperor Longqing slightly closed his eyes. Slow down. Shouting like that will startle me. I have a timid heart. My mistake. The assistant general understood that the emperor was mocking his panic, and he quickly kowtowed. My mistake. Enough with the nonsense. Prince Qin urged. How many men did Chan Sansi bring? 20,000. The assistant general swallowed. At least 20,000, and the number of immortal masters is also numerous, impossible to ascertain quickly. 20,000. Upon hearing this, the tent fell into momentary silence. If there were indeed 20,000 troops, plus the over 10,000 troops in Kunyang City, they would total 30,000. 30,000 against 100,000, the disparity would no longer be as vast. In the hands of the white-robed figure, it could potentially unleash astounding combat effectiveness. Emperor Longqing didn't immediately speak but instead rose, walking onto an immortal crane to look across the river. Chapter 844. Under the vast sky, the pitch-black Bagong Mountain towers mightily, like a giant beast lying dormant on the thick earth, covered with jagged rocks and dense foliage that devours the light. The grass and plants sway in the wind, whispering in hushed tones, and the dark green trees sway eerily, like twisted demon claws. Among them, crimson flags flutter, weaving through the forest. Shadows of soldiers move within, without discernible numbers, only revealing the entire mountain range teemed with them. When spread out, 200,000 soldiers indeed form such a spectacle. Occasionally, silhouettes flew across the sky, likely cultivators from Yunding Palace coming to assist, numbering over 20. Dan Liangqing, Emperor Longqing said in a drawn-out tone. Is this what you said about reinforcements not exceeding 50,000? Dan Liangqing's expression grew grave upon witnessing this scene. If this is true, it means that after the battle at the Fei River, Qing country had already begun preparations. Cao Kai paid no heed, gesturing for him to continue. Your Majesty need not worry. Even if they number 200,000, we can handle them with ease. Dan Liangqing held a golden bamboo, pointing towards Kunyang City. At the latest, before midnight tonight, I will be able to break the city protection array. By then, my sex brethren will use the human wave strategy to deal with the rebels inside the city, more than enough. I will continue to command the battle formations. Your Majesty and Senior Ling Kuei can focus on confronting Chun Sansi. Furthermore, with the thick earth barrier activated, news from Kunyang City is sealed. They have no way of knowing about the White Robe's return. When the Great Formation breaks, it will be their moment of collapse. Therefore, what we must do now is simply to turn the central and rear armies from facing Kunyang City to facing the Luojian, preventing a sudden attack from the enemy army without preparation. Your Majesty, the decisive victory will be at midnight tonight. After this battle, with Your Majesty's cultivation, the entire eastern continent could be under your control within 3 to 5 years, and the Mang Mountain ancestor vein will naturally be within reach. Once successful, please do not forget, post-war matters will be discussed later. Emperor Longqing interrupted. What your Shengyun sect must do is win this battle. As for the rest, it is unnecessary for a mortal Master Shan to worry. Faced with such arrogance, Dan Liangcheng could only endure, bowing respectfully before continuing to wield his life-bound magical artifact, attacking the city with the formation. Boom! With the dual augmentation of the Imperial Jade Seal and Ling Kuei, the mysterious armor Xuanfeng formation, having supported until now, finally revealed a crack amidst the tremendous buzzing, and could not be repaired. It was as if prey had finally bled the first drop under siege, stimulating the beasts greatly, bringing court soldiers' morale to a peak, nearly frantically engaging in the final assault on the city. Meanwhile, the rest of the court's large army began to mobilize. This campaign, the over 1 million troops were divided into 4 parts. The vanguard army, the front army, the central army, and the rear army, with 100,000 in the vanguard army and the rest with 300,000 soldiers each. Upon receiving the latest orders, the army began to shift direction in batches. Facing millions of soldiers, the sheer number was truly vast, blocking the entire plain, making it seem endless, forming a veritable sea of people. Such a massive army, akin to enormous siege engines, possessed unlimited power but was equally constrained by its size, making its movements extremely cumbersome. Every soldier was a cog in a giant mechanism. A single command, from start to finish, would take over 2 hours to transmit. This was even with the aid of cultivators. Without cultivators, relying only on horses galloping back and forth, an apparently simple command like central and rear armies face east towards Luojian and form an array would take at least half a day to complete. After all, a 1 million-strong army, just linking up the rear would cover dozens of miles. The battle drums thundered, the flags waved. These deafening noises seemed to boost morale, but actually served as the army's communication tools. How many times the war drums were beaten, how the flags were waved, directed soldiers in the formation on the steps to take, without a half-step error. For this reason, only figures like the military immortal have the qualification to say, the more, the better. Finally, with the giant mechanism operating smoothly, the orders were successfully completed, maintaining the Luding Lijia formation. The central and rear armies, totaling 600,000 soldiers, turned their spearheads, their military strength targeting the eastern tributary of the Fei River, the long river of Luojian. And these 600,000 soldiers bordered the Luojian riverbank, lacking only a step to falling into the river, and with the Luding Lijia formation, golden walls emerged along the riverbank, denying the enemy any chance to cross. Boom! On the front line, with the onset of a new round of bombardment, the city protection array of Kunyang City cracked from one fissure into many until a jagged hole half a zhang in diameter exploded in the southeast corner. A qi refining perfected cultivator from the Shangyun sect flew into the city, summoning a golden flying dagger, sealing it with both hands, fully channeling his mana into it. Buzz! The golden light flying knife tore through space, and wherever it passed, all Bailiang soldiers ahead, whether carrying shields or wearing armor, were all cut in half. Chapter 845. Because they were too sharp, many people even found themselves still swinging their swords with only half their bodies left. It wasn't until the pain and the blood spraying out hit them that they realized they were already dead. The golden light flying knife was unstoppable all the way, about to directly sever Huang Laojiu's head from his shoulders. "Hey!" Huang Laojiu was taken aback, hastily summoning a vine armor shield. The shield successfully blocked the flying knife. However, under the impact of mana, he himself was sent flying, crashing his old bones hard into the city wall, grimacing in pain. The cultivator from Shangyun's sect didn't give him any respite, seizing the rebounded golden curved blade and charging back into the fight. As long as he killed this array master, he would claim the top merit for this attack. Not to mention the Foundation Establishment pill, he wouldn't need to worry about resources all the way until the middle-late stage of Foundation Establishment. Clang! A flying sword stabbed in from the flank. Cui Zhichen from Seeking Immortal Tower intervened in time to block it, engaging in battle with the attacker. After Chen Qiren and others freed themselves to help, they finally managed to kill this cultivator after a few rounds. "Senior Huang." Cui Zhichen stepped forward to help him up. "Are you all right?" "How could I be all right? I nearly died." Huang Laojiu's face, like tree bark, was full of agony. "At most, in a few more hours, the Great Formation will collapse. Where is Daoist Chen? Hasn't he returned yet?" Seeing his condition, chased down by a cultivator inferior to himself, Cui Zhichen felt a chill in his heart. It seemed, for this battle, they couldn't rely on him and could only depend on the white robe. But the problem was, where was he? Now, over 100,000 of them were trapped inside the thick earth barrier, completely cut off from the outside world, unaware of the situation outside. According to the originally agreed time, the reinforcements from the white robe should have appeared near Bagong Mountain by now. But why was there no movement? Above them, the Imperial Jade Seal began to seemingly transform into a living entity, continuously growing larger. With just a few breaths, it had expanded to over a zhang wide, its golden light shining and building pressure. As one waxed, the other waned, the radiance of the mysterious armor Xuanfeng formation fading more and more. Suppress! The heavens and earth echoed with a majestic and deafening suppress, and the Imperial Jade Seal, over a zhang wide, descended. The barrier of the mysterious armor Xuanfeng formation, like an arc-shaped dome of glass covering the city, was at this moment filled with cracks. Finally, it could no longer bear the weight, exploding with a roar. Boom! The entire Kunyang city swayed with a massive tilt, and then was completely exposed to the enemy army. From this moment, no external force could stop the Imperial Army's attack, as more and more enemy troops and cultivators surged onto the city walls. "Brothers, the commander will be here soon to rescue us. Hold on a little longer. Whether we can win this battle depends entirely on us. Kill for me." Wang Ji shouted as he charged toward the parapet, wielding a mo blade. The soldiers had no room to retreat, each gripping their weapons, fighting bloodily. Outside the barrier, after successfully breaking the Great Formation, Emperor Longqing lightly raised his hand, retrieving the Imperial Jade Seal into his sleeve. The Ling family's ancestor, Ling Kuei, did not attack the now unprotected Kunyang, but instead stood with his sword in the air by the emperor's side. The two stood ready for battle, because they could see that, on the other side of the Luojian River, forces under the white robe began forming ranks. Kunyang City, surrounded by the thick earth barrier, and with the loss of the mysterious armor Xuanfeng formation, left the defenders inside like prey in a trap, doomed to die. In such a situation, Emperor Longqing and Cao Kai had to guard the central army to prevent the white robe from suddenly launching an attack, causing chaos that could not be managed front and back. In their view, on the surface of the Luojian River appeared a small flat boat, carrying only a young man in a long robe without a single weapon, clearly a messenger. In front of the armies of both sides, no envoy is to be harmed. With Emperor Longqing's tacit approval, Sima Qi gradually approached the shore. "You little thief." Ling Kuei squinted his eyes, mocking. "Since that Chen fellow is here, why is he still sitting motionless? If he delays any longer, the people in Kunyang City will be completely dead." Sima Qi did not step ashore, standing on the flat boat, calling out in a loud voice. "We have long intended to fight to the death, but as you all fear death, only then was I sent to deliver a challenge." "Fear death?" Prince Qin cursed angrily. "You child, do not speak nonsense." "Prince Qin, listen as I explain slowly." Sima Qi leisurely said, "If you do not fear death, why form ranks on the riverbank and set up a barrier? Clearly too afraid to face our army in a frontal battle. My commander sent me to relay a message to you all. If you truly wish for a decisive battle, move back 20 li to give our army space to land. Once our army has come ashore and formed ranks, then we will fight a decisive battle. Otherwise, we will just continue to waste time across the river. With a 1,000,000-strong army consuming resources, let's see how long you can hold out." With those words, he rowed back, adjusting the boat's head, and left slowly until disappearing on the opposite shore. This, after hearing the opposing words, many generals started discussing. The current situation was indeed like this. If they were to continue to stand off across the river, the court couldn't afford the consumption. "How about letting them come ashore?" Prince Qin suggested. "Even if they have 200,000 troops, together with our central and rear armies, we have 600,000. Impossible." Dan Liangcheng spoke up to veto it, lightly cupping his fists toward the emperor. "Your Majesty, Chun Sansi is anxious. Now, Kunyang City's city defense array has been broken, and before long it will fall. His wife and child are within and will definitely be captured alive by us. The White Robe understands this and yet has been unable to cross the river, which is why they sent someone here to provoke." Chapter 846. We don't need to pay attention. As long as His Majesty and Senior Ling Kuei hold the fort here, we can take Kunyang City before dawn, and then decide whether to let them cross the river for a direct confrontation. There's still time. Exactly. Third senior brother Nye Yuan echoed. Your Majesty, Chun Sansi wants to come ashore across the river. There must be a trick to it. We definitely can't play into his hands. Only brothers understand each other. Emperor Longqing agreed with this view. He had fought together with Sun Xiangzong in the Northern Territory in his youth, so how could he not see through such a simple provocation, and said lightly, "Let's take down Kunyang first." Fellow Taoist Xiao Dan. Ling Kuei emphasized, "It's enough with me and His Majesty here. You go assist in the siege, and don't forget to help me kill Chun Sansi's wife and children. Then I'll leave this to the two of you." Dan Liangqing accepted the order and left. The siege began at noon, continuing until sunset, and then from the glow of the setting sun to the starry night. Corpses had long piled up on the city walls, and blood flowed like a waterfall from the stumps and ruins, forming a bizarre scene under the glow of the fire. The city protection array of Kunyang was breached. However, the court's troops were still reinforced by the 6 Ding and 6 Jia Great Array, each soldier covered in protective auspicious light. Bailiang soldiers had to expend 7 or 8/10 of their chi power just to break through this light, basically costing 10 lives to barely kill one enemy. The combat power of both sides was incomparable. Even the cultivators of the Guiyuan sect found it increasingly difficult. Not to mention the other side also had cultivators. The sheer number of enemies alone was enough to drain their mana, something they could not sustain. Every so often, about 20 cultivators had arrived through the transmission array to the Divine Continent, and after just half a day, only 15 remained. After the flying swords killed over 2,000 people. Chen Qiren's mana was nearly exhausted. Cultivators of the Shangyun sect took advantage of this, unleashing 3 consecutive pure attack spells, leaving him defenseless, and he collapsed spitting blood after being struck by a golden light technique. If not for Cui Zhichen's intervention, Chen Qiren would have died on the spot. After that, he was also exhausted. As for Huang Laojiu, he was fleeing along the city wall, holding his head. At this rate, they would die in front of the city soldiers. What is Chun Sansi doing? Shangguan Haichong's Yenling saber was already chipped, and he shouted with a ferocious expression and red eyes, "Where are the promised reinforcements? Everyone, don't panic." Su Wenkai climbed to the top of the city wall and yelled to reassure them. The Lord's entire clan is in the city. How could he break his promise? He must have arrived as agreed and is arrayed on the opposite side of Luojian River. Otherwise, think about why Long Qing and Ling Kuei haven't attacked the city personally. They must be busy dealing with the Lord, unable to spare attention for Kunyang. With these words, the crowd came to their senses. Neither Chao Kai nor his companion had shown up, indirectly proving that the white robe indeed arrived at the destination on time. But the question is, when will he be able to fight his way over? Qian Qiren, unable even to wield his flying sword, gritted his teeth and said, "If this continues, we'll all die here before dawn." The distance from Bagong Mountain to Kunyang is still considerable. They simply can't hold out that long. 6 Ding and 6 Jia guard the left, heavenly soldiers descending on the right. As they spoke, Dan Liangqing unleashed another display of formation might. Hiding behind the thick earth barrier, the group found themselves helpless. Being worn down to death was inevitable. SPRRLs, Qian Qiren, at Qi refining perfection, once his mana was exhausted, was wounded by a great general of the profound image realm in the melee. Other ordinary Qi refining cultivators were more likely to be wounded by Huajin, Meridian Passage, or even lower-level martial artists. The cultivators of the Guiyuan sect and many high officials had long lost any war intent. Retreat! Retreat! A haggard Huang Laojiu shouted thrice to escape. But these words, instead, made the cultivators even more desperate. Having initially believed the words of the white robe and stayed in the city, now trapped within the thick earth barrier, they cannot leave without first breaking through it. A second-tier great array? Who can easily break it? Under everyone's gaze, Huang Laojiu fumbled in his arms for a crumpled yellow talisman paper, and with his old and hoarse voice he shouted, "This old man can open the life gate. Fellow Taoists, hurry and leave with me." That's... Qian Qiren stared at what the old man held, quickly recognizing it, and exclaimed with joy, "A talisman treasure? Senior Huang has a talisman treasure. We're saved, we're saved. Quick, let's leave this place first. If Chun Sansi is indeed at Bagong Mountain, we will join him. If not, let's flee." "Wait," King Yen Chaoji said. "Taoist Qian, take my sister-in-law and her family with you." If they abandoned the city and fled, ignoring the family of the white robe completely, the latter would definitely turn against them, and at that point their lives would be in real danger. Because once backed by the Yunding Palace, they could simply disregard them. Protecting the Chun family's relatives is truly their only talisman of survival. All right. Qian Qiren quickly understood the stakes and immediately acted as instructed. Chapter 847 Duhe. Where is everyone? Qian Qiren controlled his sword to enter the city, heading to the mansion where the white robe family members were housed, only to find it completely empty, not a single soul in sight. He grabbed the guard at the door and questioned, "Where are the Chun family members?" I don't know," the guard replied, looking bewildered. "I haven't seen them leave. Did they run away early? What kind of scheme is Chun Sansi plotting?" In desperation, Qian Qiren searched around the area several times, but still couldn't find the target. Finally, he reluctantly decided to give up and flew toward the city wall, announcing the news of the white robe family's disappearance. "Gone!" Cui Zhichen shouted in anger. "I knew that Chun wasn't trustworthy. What are we waiting for?" Shangguan Haichong threw away his notched Yenling saber. "The situation is urgent. We can't delay any longer. Let's escort His Majesty out of Kunyang first." "Immortal Masters, can't you hold on a little longer?" The legitimate Emperor Chao Huan looked at the generals who were still fighting fiercely on the city wall, showing an unexpected hesitation about escaping at this moment. The battlefield, it's the greatest test of one's temperament. During this time, he risked climbing the walls daily for inspections, living and eating alongside the soldiers. This subtly allowed him to understand the meaning of wearing the same robe. Pointing at the wall, he informed them, "If we leave like this, what will become of the soldiers inside the city? Without the immortal masters, the defending soldiers would face a one-sided slaughter. We can't worry about that much now, Cui Zhichen urged. Even if we stay, we can't hold out for too long. Yes, Your Majesty. Shangguan Haichong grabbed the emperor's dragon robe. Victory and defeat are routine events for the military family. Even if all the troops here are depleted, as long as we leave this place, we can still gather other forces. Let's go, Your Majesty. The legitimate Emperor Chao Huan was pushed away from the tower. In the chaos, they tried not to attract the attention of the soldiers, making their way to the southeastern corner, before boarding the donkey cart and flying boat. Despite this, a main general passing by during the change of guards noticed them, couldn't help but ask, "Where are you going, my lords? You're only responsible for defending the city. Don't ask questions you shouldn't," Shangguan Haichong reprimanded in response. This martial saint's armor was already tattered, with an arrow embedded in his chest. He looked at the donkey cart and flying boat behind, realizing what was happening, and his confused expression turned into a tragic anger as he suddenly raised his long knife, shouting loudly, "Shangguan Haichong, are you running away again?" "Nonsense," Shangguan Haichong argued. "We're going out to find a chance to break the enemy." "Hey!" The main general in the profound image realm roared in fury, pointing at the distant city wall, where corpses occasionally fall from time to time. "Run, run, run. All you know is to run. You said you wanted to create a peaceful era and establish unprecedented merits. That's why the brothers followed you out to risk their lives. But what do you take us for? Do you see our lives as less than a dog's in your eyes?" "Chao Huan." He directly called out the emperor's name. "Stop pretending to be deaf and dumb. I'm talking to you. Answer my questions." "How dare you?" One eunuch was furious. "Wei Lan, how dare you directly address His Majesty's name? This is a crime of treason." Ignoring him, Wei Lan stared at the dragon robe with bloodshot eyes, his neck veins bulging as he shouted, "Chao Huan, with a great enemy at the gates, as the ruler of a nation, you've repeatedly tried to escape. You're even less than a child from the Chen family. What kind of heavenly son are you? What kind of emperor?" "General Wei." Under this questioning, the legitimate Emperor Chao Huan felt extremely ashamed rather than angry and was temporarily at a loss for words. "Emperor!" With a voice filled with tears, Wei Lan roared, "You can't leave. The brothers need Your Majesty. You just need to stand behind us. Everyone can still hold on. Maybe Commander Chun will soon come back to save us. If you leave now, everything will be over." As he spoke, he threw down his weapon with a clang, then knelt heavily on the ground, begging desperately, "Your Majesty, please, I beg you, stay here. I can guarantee that as long as there is one brother alive, they won't let them hurt a single strand of Your Majesty's hair." "Kill him."
Impatient, Cui Ziken coldly commanded.
Immediately, a cultivator behind him manipulated a flying sword, directly targeting Wei Lan's throat. But just at that moment, Chao Huan, dressed in a dragon robe, suddenly stood in front. The cultivator hurriedly redirected his sword, nearly grazing the heavenly spirit, almost accidentally killing him. "Sixth brother!" King Yen Chaoji exclaimed in surprise. Immortal Master Cui, the legitimate emperor, with graying hair, slowly raised his head, his eyes somewhat red, questioning, "What crime has General Wei committed to deserve death?" Everyone felt bewildered, not understanding what was happening. "Isn't that obvious?" With an indifferent expression, Cui Zhichen said, "The situation is urgent. There's no time to waste with this person." "Yes, sixth brother," King Yen Chaoji urged. "But if you say not to kill him, we won't. Don't waste time. Let's leave together." In the night, dim firelight flickered on the somewhat timid face of the legitimate emperor, swaying as he looked at King Yen and the many immortal masters, seemingly struggling with something internally until he made a certain resolution, his lips trembling as he spoke. "I'm changing my mind. I'm not leaving, and you can't leave either. Stay and defend to the death." Chapter 848. What? Everyone was shocked. Are you insane? Qian Qiren looked at him with bewilderment. This is simply nonsense. I am not negotiating with you. Chao Huan's tone became firmer. General Wei is right. These soldiers are sacrificing their lives for me. If I abandon them at this moment, how could I be worthy of the throne? Sixth brother, that's enough. King Yen, Chao Ji, grabbed his wrist. Hurry up and leave. He exerted force as he spoke, but couldn't budge him. 12th brother. Chao Huan suddenly said, I know I am your puppet. King Yen was taken aback. Chao Huan's cloudy eyes reddened, and he said with utter clarity as he looked at the brother helping him ascend the throne, You just want to utilize the reputation I've accumulated in the court over the years and my status as the rightful heir to recruit men of talent and expand our forces. All of this I know as your brother. From Ziwei Mountain to the attempted assassination of the emperor at the temple, it was all King Yan's scheme. He was merely a puppet on a string. Moreover, the entire Guiyuan sect stood with the Seeking Immortal Tower. Ultimately, whoever sat on the throne was just a matter of King Yan's words. All along, Chao Huan has done whatever King Yan said without question because he does not care. He just wants to do something for the legacy of his ancestors, even if it's for one day on the throne, even if he might be forced to abdicate at any moment, he will do his utmost. Sixth brother, you're overthinking it. King Yen said openly, I never intended to do anything to you, nor am I in a hurry to drive you off the throne. I'm doing this merely because of a personal grudge with that person. He cared more about securing the ancestor vein, entering the Tao, and pursuing immortality than he did about the throne. Besides, to be blunt, given Chao Huan's health, he won't live for many years, so there's no need to rush. Fine, Chao Huan said forcefully. In that case, let the cultivators of Guiyuan sect stay and defend the city with me. How can the path of longevity be abandoned because of some mere mortals? Before King Yen could respond, Qian Qiren mercilessly said, If you want to stay, stay. Our sect won't stay and risk our lives. For them, the whole battle was merely for the ancestor vein. If there was any possibility of retreat, how could they choose to live and die with mortal soldiers? While they spoke, many cultivators were already taking flight under the cover of darkness, clearly unwilling to continue. Sixth brother, you see, I have no choice. King Yen, Chao Ji, pleaded earnestly. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late. Seeing the other party unmoving, he didn't continue to persuade and turned to step onto his master's flying sword. Under the helpless gaze of the legitimate emperor, Chao Huan, all the cultivators of Guiyuan sect left, with not a single one staying behind. Your Majesty? Wei Lan looked at the emperor in front of him, seemingly not expecting that he would stay, and instead said, You should leave with them. Since the cultivators of Guiyuan sect weren't willing to assist, there was no point for the legitimate emperor to stay. I also have reached the Meridian Passage realm, Chao Huan said, picking up a long knife from the ground, his voice trembling. Today, without immortal masters, I will live and die with the soldiers. How can the Jiang Mountain of the Chao family, built from horseback, lack courage? Your Majesty! Wei Lan covered his face with tears. I knew it, Your Majesty must be the Holy Monarch. Rest assured, Your Majesty. If the traitors want to harm you, they'll have to step over my dead body. His Wei family was also old ministers of Qilin Pavilion, having chosen to follow when King Jin fled the capital city. Today's words have made dying worthwhile. On the city walls, the number of cultivators diminished rapidly, and the casualties of the Kunyang garrison began to increase exponentially. Where are the immortal masters? Why are the immortal masters missing? Isn't it obvious? Feng Yong beheaded an enemy general while cursing. They must have fled. As he spoke halfway, he saw someone in a dragon robe charging onto the city wall with a knife, personally joining the fight. Chao Huan's moves were clumsy, his martial arts clearly long neglected. He barely escaped death without slaying an enemy. But his actions indeed greatly inspired the soldiers under the legitimate rule. Soldiers, don't panic. Chao Huan got up from the ground and shouted, "The Immortal Masters are finding a way to contact Commander Chun for a coordinated internal and external assault to break the enemy. Hold on a little longer. Charge!" The sound of battle was thunderous and earth-shaking. On the other side, many cultivators from Guiyuan's sect descended above Kunyang City, soon faced with a thick earth-colored barrier rising in front of them. "Leave it to me." Huang Laojiu clumsily formed seals with his hands, an orange-yellow talisman rising steadily, the spiritual power it emitted far surpassing that of ordinary talismans. Talisman. A talisman, the so-called talisman, is a special talisman that only cultivators of the Golden Core realm and above can create, often with astonishing power. However, because the creation process requires consuming magical treasures or the cultivator's own mana, talismans are also extraordinarily precious. Under the urging of Huang Laojiu, the originally thin piece of talisman paper transformed into a magical treasure. This treasure was jet black like ink, appearing as an iron cone. Though only palm-sized, the power contained within was extraordinary. Sealing demon nails. "Go!" Elder Huang softly urged. The sealing demon nails transformed into a stream of jet black light, leaving an ink-like trail and crashing into the barrier with a thunderous force, directly drilling a hole over 10 feet wide on the surface of the thick earth barrier, which was at least second-tier mid-grade in defensive power. Chapter 849. However, simultaneously, the sealing demon nails shattered, transforming into tiny spots of spirit light, gradually dissipating into the air. Talisman are different from ordinary talismans. They are not single-use items. The reason they collapsed upon use wasn't because the thick earth barrier was sturdy, but due to the Heaven and Earth Seal. The Heaven and Earth Seal suppresses not only cultivators by restricting them to the perfection of chi refinement, but also suppresses magic artifacts and formations. Once they reach second-tier top grade, they perish. If the talisman hadn't been restricted, it could have been used repeatedly until the boundary was completely destroyed, but now it could only tear open a gap for escape. A perfectly good talisman wasted just like that, leaving the cultivators heartbroken. "Hurry up and go," Qian Qiren loudly reminded. "Someone's pursuing us." When a flaw appeared in the formation, Dan Liang became aware and immediately headed over with people to check the situation. "Let's get out of here." Huang Laojiu fiercely whipped the donkey, and the donkey cart shot towards the sky like an arrow, escaping into the heavens. The others quickly followed, escaping Kunyang City just before the Shangyun sect cultivators arrived. They flew more than 10 miles and only stopped after confirming no one was pursuing them. Without the boundary's concealment, everyone's vision returned to normal. "Look quickly." A cultivator, using a spell similar to the 1,000-mile eye, scouted towards Bagong Mountain, then shouted, "Fellow brothers, look! Chun Sansi has indeed returned as promised." Looking across the Luo stream, one could vaguely see troops arrayed in formation. "It seems that Chun didn't deceive us," a cultivator asked. "Given this, should we return to the city? Without us, the casualties inside the city might be severe." "Junior brother, are you confused?" Qian Qiren scolded. "Their heavy casualties have nothing to do with us." "Don't worry too much," Cui Zhichen calmly judged. "The people in Kunyang City can still hold out for a while. Let's observe for now. If we can win, we'll head back. If we can't win, returning now is useless." Taoist Cui has considered it thoroughly. Qian Qiren said, "Our sect cannot afford any more sacrifices lightly. These disciples in the late stage and perfection of chi refining are all foundation establishment seeds and the future backbone of the sect." Hiss. "By the way, how does Chun plan to attack?" From their perspective, tens of thousands of court troops were arrayed along the shore, with golden light barriers resembling city walls. Moreover, with Emperor Longqing and Ling Kuei personally overseeing, they couldn't imagine how to break the enemy, feeling fortunate for their early escape. Otherwise, waiting for the white robe would truly be 9 deaths and 1 life. "Let's take a look first, take a look first." Huang Laojiu sat on the donkey holding the wine gourd, observing. Outside Yongjia Prefecture, under the white robe's command. "Commander, Sima Qi reported, "The battle challenge has been delivered to the other side, but it seems they don't intend to retreat and let us land." "Brother." Zhang Shun held a fish spear and looked out, a bit anxious. "The city protection array of Kunyang City seems to have broken. They might not hold out for long. Are we just going to watch? The time is almost up. Let's wait a bit longer." Chun Sansi ordered calmly. "Dan Chuanyu, lead 5,000 troops to retreat. Make as much commotion as possible. Sima Qi, you spread the news of our retreat to the other side." "Retreat? All right, I understand." Dan Chuanyu asked no questions and immediately complied. The opposite shore, Imperial Army. Emperor Longqing and Ling Kuei continued to maintain their positions here. Across the riverbank, they could even see the occasional silhouette of the white-robed scouts flying into the sky, probing the situation. If not for the fear of an ambush from Yunding Palace, they probably would have acted already. "Your Majesty, Senior Ling Kuei, there's been a minor incident in Kunyang." Dan Liangcheng reported, "The people inside the city used some magic skill and tore a hole in the boundary, leading to the escape of the Guiyuan sect disciples. However, this is also a good thing. Without Guiyuan sect disciples, they certainly won't hold out until dawn, and our losses will be minimized." "All escaped?" Ling Kuei urgently asked. "What about the descendants of that little thief?" "They probably escaped too." Dan Liangcheng said frankly, "I didn't see their figures. If Guiyuan sect escaped, they would definitely take the family members of the Chun. Otherwise, Chun Sansi wouldn't spare them." "Report." As they spoke, a scout came to report, "Your Majesty, the Bailiang army across the river sent a message, saying that since we didn't dare to have a final battle, they are preparing to withdraw and fight on another day." Upon hearing this, Emperor Longqing personally controlled the sky to observe, indeed seeing the army banners across the river waving, as figures retreated towards the east. "This is bad." Third brother Nye Yuan said, "Your Majesty, my junior brother's family has escaped. They seem to be preparing to retreat and welcome more troops from Qing country." Ling Kuei snorted coldly. "I thought he was some great hero, but once his wife and child are safe, he disregards the lives of others?" "Father," Prince Qin quickly said, "we can't let Chun the hunter escape. If he leaves, with Yunding Palace backing him, it would be like releasing a tiger back to the mountain." "That's true," Nye Yuan said with great frustration. "But we can't have tens of thousands of troops chase after them. What if they counterattack mid-crossing, what then?" As he spoke, he caught Dan Liangqing's attention. "Your Majesty," Ling Kuei said in a deep voice, "why don't you and I go over together and attempt to slay that little thief directly?" Emperor Longqing remained silent, his sharp eyes scanning the opposite shore, looking at the sea of banners, feeling it must be a trap. Chapter 850. Since Yunding Palace dared to come, it indicates they must have the second-tier formation. Even if he possesses the Dragon Abyss sword, unless absolutely necessary, he must not waste it. "Your Majesty, I have a plan." Dan Liangcheng clasped his fists and said, "Why not agree to let them cross the river?" "Impossible." Lu Ji sternly stopped him, saying, "Taoist Dan, my junior brother is cautious in warfare. If he says he wants to come ashore for a confrontation, he must have something prepared. Truly letting him ashore might lead to unexpected schemes and deceptions." "General Lu." But Dan Liangcheng said, "I only said to agree to let them cross the river, but didn't say to truly let them ashore." "Oh," Nye Yuan asked curiously, "what ingenious plan does Immortal Master Dan have?" "Actually, it was General Nye's words that reminded me." Dan Liangcheng said leisurely, "You just mentioned that if we cross the river in pursuit, the opponent might attack us halfway across. This tactic, we can also use it. I'm eager to hear the details." "Firstly," Dan Liangcheng explained slow and steady, "inform them that we agree to the decisive battle and are willing to retreat 20 miles, providing them space to come ashore and form their ranks. Of course, they will not believe easily, so we must put on a show. First, order the forces at the riverbank to retreat, enticing the enemy army to cross the river. But we won't truly wait until they come ashore to form their ranks. Instead, when they are halfway across, suddenly order a full-scale backward charge, catching them off guard. This is attacking them halfway across. Senior brother Nye Yuan adopted a thoughtful stance, then realized and praised, "This plan is very ingenious." Indeed, Prince Qin urgently agreed. "Father, our provisions cannot last much longer. 1,000,000 troops, what a staggering consumption. Due to their sheer number, they don't even have the qualification to retreat. It's either decisive victory or collapse of national strength." I also think it's feasible. Ling Kuei chimed in, "Emperor, Chun Sansi has likely reached the true power middle stage. Now if we join forces, we can easily kill him. But if we delay further, dreams turn into nightmares." Emperor Longqing's Taoist robe fluttered in the night wind as he stared across at that insignificant white robe. After a brief fluctuation, his eyes, deep as a pool, flashed with cold light. He finally made the ultimate decision, uttering a soul-shaking approve word. Across the river, the decisive battle was imminent. A white robe sat by Lin Jiang, eyes closed in relaxation, until Sima Qi's voice sounded in his ears. "Commander, they agreed to retreat 20 miles, giving us space to come ashore and form ranks." Chun Sansi suddenly opened his eyes, gazing across the river to see the golden barrier that had previously stood firm had vanished. The Imperial army began orderly retreating toward the back, giving them place. Without hesitation, he said, "Transmit the order. The entire army prepares to cross the river." "Chun Shui, I have some concerns." Sima Yao reminded, "This might be the enemy's counterattack, luring us into the water, then attacking us halfway across." "I know," Chun Sansi calmly said, "but it's already over. Any grand battle, the true decisive moments often emerge in an instant. And that instant has arrived." War drums sound, hoofs thunder. East of Luojian, 2,000 cavalry align their formation, poised for a charge. Opposite them is the Imperial 1,000,000 strong, 2,000 against 1,000,000. One white horse with a white robe, slowly positioning at the forefront of the military formation. Silver sparkles. The long spear appears in their commander's hand, accompanied by a dragon's roar, high raised. A resonant and authoritative voice echoes through the heavens. "The entire army. Cross the river." Chapter 851. Our army was defeated. Fei River. 1,000,000-strong army. From the Central Army, Dan Liangcheng wielded the mystic jade golden bamboo and ordered sternly, "All generals, heed my command. The Central Army rear to become front, front to become rear, orderly retreat 20 miles, rear army forward, center, left, and right to move south 15 miles. Additionally, withdraw 8,000 light cavalry from the left of the Central Army to seize the crossing at the northern ford of Luojian, and 15,000 light cavalry from the rear army's rear to seize the southern ford, ensuring the crossing before the main army's retreat is complete. Then move around to the rear of Bagong Mountain to cut off the enemy army's retreat. Repeat everything once more. Military command is never the task of a single person. The more troops there are, the more experienced lower-ranking officers are needed to aid in direction. If the commander is likened to the key that starts the engine, then the generals from the main general down to the small flag in the army are the various gears, essential for bringing the whole mechanism to life with no room for error in any link. At this moment, over 50 mystical phenomenon generals were gathered here awaiting orders, accurately repeating the Immortal Master's deployment, word for word without error. "Execute immediately. I shall obey." With a single command, over 50 mystical phenomenon generals mounted their horses, scattering in all directions to inform their subordinate assistant generals, who then passed orders down to the 1,000 captains, 100 captains, until reaching the lowest ranks. On the vast, desolate battlefield of Ustate, an enormous machine comprising 1,000,000 troops began to slowly operate with the turning of gears. When the number of people exceeds 100,000, it creates a formidable atmosphere. A glorious 1,000,000 heavenly soldiers with divine might. Dan Liangqing ascended into the air, pointing at the vast troops below, proclaiming loudly, "Your Majesty, please observe, though we appear to retreat, in reality, it is the three-talent formation of heaven and earth. Once Chen Sansi begins commanding the river crossing, our army will immediately regroup and return, forming an encirclement from three sides. Furthermore, I plan to deploy the thick earth barrier from within Kunyang City to completely trap them. So even if some scattered troops manage to escape back across the river, they will be routed by ambush troops waiting in advance. Right now, my only worry is whether Chen Sansi will cross the river. Since his wife and children have already withdrawn, there's no need for him to come and fight us desperately. He will cross the river." Emperor Longqing sat on the back of the immortal crane, gazing at the figure across the river. He knew this young man too well, recalling 6 years prior. On the banks of the Hongze River at the edge of Yuyun, this young man, though only at the refining internal level with barely 1,000 troops, still resolutely escorted the civilians across the river. Now, this young man is above Marshal Saint, accompanied by a large army, with Bailiang troops trapped across the river in the city. How could he hesitate? The only difference between then and now is that Chen Sansi went from a mere 100 captain to a victorious general commanding 200,000 iron cavalry. As a commander, one must learn to make sacrifices. If the court did not pretend to expose a flaw by retreating 20 miles, Cao Kai believed Chen Sansi would withdraw without hesitation, even if the entire garrison inside Kunyang City were annihilated. This is considering the bigger picture, a decision a victorious general ought to make. However, if the court agreed to retreat and offered a glimmer of hope, even though Chen Sansi knew there might be an ambush upon crossing the river, he would still resolutely lead his army across, because he would rather take some risks than abandon the soldiers inside Kunyang City. Ultimately, it still comes down to sentimentality. This is Chen Sansi's greatest weakness. Man has weaknesses, and thus shall be defeated. Kunyang City. The slaughter of blood and flesh continued. Emperor Chao Huan held the Yenling saber, his dragon robe already in tatters, but at this moment, in the eyes of his subordinates, he donned truly indestructible dragon robe. "Your Majesty, be careful." Wei Lan risked his life protecting at his side, slicing an enemy attempting a sneak attack in half at the waist. Not long ago, the number of cultivators outside Kunyang City sharply decreased, easing their pressure significantly, yet the court still had the 6 Ding 6 Jia Great Formation bolstering their numbers, making it still difficult to fend off. Brothers, hold on. Their cultivators have obviously decreased. This means they are now engaged in battle with the commander and cannot spare us any attention. Kill! Inside the city, the remaining 12,000 garrison troops had now whittled down to barely over 9,000, and with the pounding of siege engines, large sections of the Kunyang City wall had collapsed, making it easy for the enemy to climb the walls using ladders or corpses. At the same time, most of them also realized one issue. That is, Bagong Mountain in Yongjia Prefecture is far from Kunyang. Even if Commander Chen is already fighting there, he would need to fight through tens of thousands of enemy troops before arriving. If things continue on this current trajectory, they're afraid they might not hold out until then. In the air, the cultivators from Guiyuan sect had been observing for quite a while. They would make no more sacrifices and intended to patiently await the final result. According to the reports from the front, nearby Bagong Mountain, Chen Sansi allegedly brought 20,000 reinforcements and numerous cultivators from Yunding Palace, creating a mighty momentum. As for how much aid could be pulled in, when the White Robe abandoned the city, Guiyuan sect simultaneously sent spiritual beasts to verify within the realm of Qing country. Each faction had spies within others, and they were certainly no exception. Especially now with Yunding Palace unexpectedly involved, the people of Guiyuan sect had to ascertain the true situation to make a basic judgment on the circumstances. As allies are only temporary, ultimately they are competitors for the ancestor vein. Chapter 852. According to the timeline, the spiritual beasts sent out should have returned by dawn today, yet they remain missing even at midnight, delayed for a long time. The cultivators of the Guiyuan sect can only wait here idly, observing the changes on the battlefield ahead and conserving their strength. Hiss! Look! There seems to be movement below. The voice of Qian Qiren broke the silence in the night sky. Looking down from their position 10,000 feet high, the vast army on the barren land below appeared like a black river, or like swarming ants, blocking the banks of Luo Stream tightly, giving no chance for reinforcements to cross, intending to hard-press on Kunyang before anything else. But suddenly, for an unknown reason, the dark tide began to surge. With the cultivators' astonishing eyesight enhanced by spells, they could see that the Imperial army seemed to be retreating. Are they preparing to make space and allow our reinforcements to cross? This Chun person is quite interesting. Really can make the court voluntarily let them ashore. But what good is it to come ashore? A fact lay before them. That is, the tens of thousands of troops of the court had long been prepared. Even if all interference factors were disregarded and they successfully crossed the river, they were merely stepping onto a piece of land deliberately let by the opponent, with no chance of a surprise victory. Chen Sansi has abandoned cities and called for reinforcements, but in the end, isn't it still a frontal showdown? The other side has over 500,000 troops, plus Emperor Longqing and Ling Kuei overseeing. Even with the white robes aided by Yunding Palace, the probability of a frontal win would probably not be too high. Unless Yunding Palace has some trump card. Exactly. Yunding Palace is prepared. This is the only explanation the cultivators of the Guiyuan sect could infer. Damn Yunding Palace plotting for a long time. If this were true, their preparations over the years would serve as a wedding dress for Yunding Palace. Soon after, it would even be turned against the Guiyuan sect. As everyone was curious, a spiritual beast honeybird, merely the size of a finger, flew in. The very spiritual beast sent to gather information. It landed in Qian Qiren's palm, spitting out a strip of paper. The latter scrutinized its contents immediately. How? Cui Zhichen asked. What's Yunding Palace preparing? We should be ready in advance too. Under the anxious eyes of everyone. Not good. Qian Qiren's expression flickered. Then his voice trembled as he revealed the truth. There's no such trump card. You mean, is Yunding Palace simply prepared to fight desperately?
No.
Qian Qiren shook his head. Yunding Palace hasn't even come. See for yourselves. The secret message is clear. Neither Qing country nor Yunding Palace has sent any troops, not a single cultivator, across the river. There's no reinforcement in Kunyang. Or, the only reinforcement is Chen Sansi. We have been played by him. Upon hearing this, the cultivators were shocked and lost their color. Disciple, Cui Zhichen hurriedly asked, you're more familiar with military deployment. In the absence of Yunding Palace's help, in such a short time, how many troops can Chen Sansi gather to fight back? At most 20,000. King Yen Chaozhi answered without hesitation. The only force capable of reaching Bagong Mountain within half a month is the 20,000 soldiers who stayed behind at Chibi. 20,000. Everyone looked at each other in shock. Is Chun out of his mind? Going in such a great circle, only to bring back 20,000. Intending to use these 20,000 to fight against 1,000,000. Quite a bluff. Even the Guiyuan sect, long aware of the truth, only just realized the Great Shang court would only know even later. They would undoubtedly believe there are indeed 200,000 troops across the river. But a lie is still a lie. Fooling others is possible. How could he fool himself? Merely 2,000. Once they successfully cross the river, it would be exposed. It wouldn't even be comparable to a sheep entering a tiger's mouth. It would purely serve as a side dish for the enemy army. Crazy. This Chun is truly crazy. Fortunately, we left early. Had we continued to hold Kunyang, we would have certainly been killed by him. Let's watch first and wait. If the situation doesn't look right, we'll immediately leave here. If this battle is lost, Guiyuan sect would practically lose the qualification to continue competing for the ancestor vein and would have no choice but to return with hatred. Hiss, what a strong wind! The always silent Huang Laojiu on the donkey cart suddenly spoke, and only then did the people around realize that in the previously silent night sky, a brutal gale started to blow without warning, followed by bean-sized raindrops hitting everyone. The sky has changed. Over Fei River, The bright moon shone. The stars filled the sky, the celestial river sparkling. On a night after a clear day, the expansive night sky, which was originally a spectacular view of stars hanging low across the open wilderness, the moon surging with the great river's flow, suddenly stirred up a sinister, eerie storm. Amidst the waves of fierce gale, more and more dark clouds surged from afar, gathering over Fay River, then roiling up like a tsunami after they obscured the sky here. Shooting stars lined through sparse woods, the moon traveling against clouds. Peering from the ground, through the pitch-black branches of Bagong Mountain, one could see the bright moon constantly shuttling over the surface of the clouds, until it plunged into the sinister hell-like black fog, completely engulfed and devoured, with not a sliver of light emerging. In contrast, the starlight, originally dimmer than the bright moon, began to twinkle one after another, growing increasingly bright. Crack! A streak of purplish-red lightning slashed through. This star-studded night sky suddenly poured with a torrent of rain, a bizarre heavenly phenomenon unseen in 100 years. Chapter 853. This scene, not only the cultivators in Madare, but the Imperial Army on the ground also saw it clearly, unable to resist discussing among themselves. Red lightning? And why are the stars much brighter than usual, almost turning white? When I was young, I learned about celestial phenomena from my teacher. Then quickly tell us what's going on? This is an omen of misfortune. An omen of misfortune? That's right, the last time this happened was over 500 years ago, when the former Jean perished. That night, the Milky Way turned white, and blood lightning fell from the heavens. It was because the Jean dynasty was cruel and tyrannical, inviting heaven's punishment. Ah? Is that really true? Then who is heaven's punishment for today? Who knows? It could be the rebel army, or it could be us. Among the court's million troops, there were the Black Tortoise, White Tiger, and Heavenly Lion camps. After the celestial phenomenon, many people in these three camps immediately claimed to understand the heavenly signs and diligently explained to those around them. Coupled with the unusually bright stars and purple lightning, the theory of heaven's punishment spread quickly. 1,000,000 people, 1,000,000 mouths, all discussing the idea of heaven's punishment, leaving them momentarily distracted, especially when some among them said that the heaven's punishment was aimed directly at them, causing even more unease. Shut up. Silence. Just a bit of rain. Look at your reaction. Do what you're supposed to do. If anything goes wrong, it will be your heads. Each assistant general and thousand captain moved around, quieting the soldiers while conveying orders from the front, instructing the central army and rear army to retreat backwards. In their midst, Emperor Longqing and others naturally noticed the change in the celestial signs. Your Majesty, an omen of misfortune. A civil servant stumbled through the rain and mud, fearfully kneeling and shouting. Your Majesty, the Milky Way turns white, purple-red evil lightning. This is a sign that something ominous is to occur. This person was the director of the observatory, usually responsible for observing celestial and star phenomena. An omen of misfortune? Emperor Longqing narrowed his eyes slightly, interrupting the person with his dragging tone. Nonsense! Where is there an omen of misfortune? Your Majesty, it's real. The director, disregarding the interruption, solemnly said, I only know that recently, the 5 Emperors constellation in the Taiwei constellation is dim, unfavorable for your Majesty. Tonight, another anomaly has appeared. I'm afraid it's unsuitable for a decisive battle. Nonsense. His Majesty just broke through the Foundation establishment barrier. How could anything unexpected happen? This is clearly heavenly good fortune descending. Chamberlain eunuch Huang Hong sternly rebuked. Someone, drag him away and execute him. Emperor Longqing quietly watched as the official was beheaded. The phenomenon was apparent to everyone. But even if what the observatory official said was true, he had to be executed. Because there was no turning back, the decisive battle drew near, and no one was allowed to waver the army's morale. Within, Emperor Longqing's heart gradually filled with unease. He did not know if this anomaly was a coincidence or connected to the white robe across the river, and eventually he could not contain himself, quietly asking, Dan Liangcheng, is this really an omen of misfortune? The methods of observing phenomena contradict the heavenly Tao. We cultivators truly do not dare to engage in it. Dan Liangcheng looked up at the night sky, and after a moment of hesitation, resolutely said, Your Majesty need not worry. We cultivators acquire nature's spiritual energy, attesting to it for immortality, originally defying heaven. When golden core and nascent soul great cultivators break through their realms, they must face heavenly tribulation. If we truly feared some natural anomalies of heaven and earth, there would be no need to continue on the immortal path. Hee. Ling Kuei laughed indifferently. What little friend says is not wrong. Emperor need not worry. Such anomalies in the cultivation world are as common as winds and rains. Your Majesty. Dan Liangcheng pointed across the river, speaking with more confidence. Everything is in place. Only crossing the river remains. When Chun Sansi steps on the pontoon, he will face his army's entire annihilation. Wait! Prince Qin stood on the wooden-built cloud tower, gazing carefully across, quickly discovering something amiss. Why are there so few of them? The decisive battle approached. Logically speaking, all of the White Robe's forces should be gathered at the ferry, ready to charge across at any time. But from their elevated point of view, the opponent's numbers were insufficient, clearly claiming a 200,000-strong army. The scale gathered on the opposite bank seemed at most 70 or 80,000, possibly even less than 50,000. Seems to be a ruse, Dan Liangcheng said thoughtfully. I was wondering how he could have gathered a 200,000-strong army in such a short time. This person is best at bluffing, Prince Qin disdainfully said. Back at Hilagwan, it was said he had Nan Su so intimidated about how many troops were inside the pass, leading to a rout of 10,000 soldiers. Now he's attempting the same trick. It's useless, Dan Liangcheng calmly said. Once the fight starts, they will naturally be exposed. After the battle starts, finish it quickly. In Emperor Longqing's heart was left only this single thought. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder accompanied by the sound of war drums. Under the lightning, banners fluttered. 1,000,000 troops so vast. After deploying, if you were in the midst, you could not see the outside at all, only your comrades and nothing else. Thus all their movements must strictly follow the war drums and military flags, or else they would fall into complete chaos. Chapter 854. At this moment, all the commands in the army were conveying one order to them: retreat. Why retreat as soon as there's thunder? What happened at the front? I don't know. The delivery of military orders cannot simply rely on shouting. Even if the voice is loud enough, the mixed voices of numerous generals can easily cause chaos. The orders conveyed by military flags and war drums are often very concise and clear, such as how many times the drum is beaten for marching, how long the horn is blown for withdrawing, how the military flags are waved to indicate which direction to move, and what formation to arrange. For the numerous array soldiers, they do not need to know much on the battlefield. They just need to use their lives to defend the orders. Just like now, amidst the pouring rain and thunder and lightning, they repeatedly confirmed that the orders received were simply 2 words: retreat. Why retreat? What happened at the front? More and more soldiers wanted to see what was happening in the front, with some even stepping on the shoulders of their comrades or leaping high. However, even a 1,000,000-strong army spreads dozens of miles horizontally, and with the gale and torrential rain, the black night lightning, how could they possibly see what was happening up front? When you are told to retreat, just retreat. What are you standing there in a daze for? Hurry up. One by one, assistant generals, either riding war horses or carried by cultivators flying swords, shuttled through the formations, continuously urging the soldiers to execute the orders. At the same time, in the field of vision of Emperor Longqing and others, the white-robed soldiers on the opposite shore finally moved. They appeared in a charging posture, stepping one after another onto the pre-constructed floating bridge, sprinting madly towards the intentionally left gap for the 1,000,000-strong army. the sound of hooves on the planks like dense war drums. Emperor Longqing, riding the immortal crane, slowly ascended into the air, the mana in his body beginning to gather. His dragon eyes deep as an abyss released an unprecedented vigilance and killing intent. By his side, Ling Kuei also wielded the Yin Gui Netherworld sword, the sticky nether river true power wrapping around the coldly shining sword blade like vines. Dan Liangqing was no longer concerned with Kunyang City, holding the mystic jade golden bamboo, staying here, ready to fully control the formation to assist the two. The end. Everything was about to end. They only needed the white robe and white horse leading the first batch of soldiers to land. The barrier of the Sixding Sixjia Great Formation would appear behind them, cutting off their retreat, making it impossible for most of the rebel army still on the bridge to advance or retreat. Then, the Central Army and Rear Army, according to the original deployment, would attack in an encircling formation of the Heaven and Earth Three Talents formation before the enemy army could all land. They all knew that the White Robe could use the Heavenly Book Array, but the so-called military formation still depended on manpower. Under the court's arrangements, the rebel army fundamentally had no opportunity to form a formation. As soon as they landed, it was a dead end. 50 zhang, 20 zhang, 10 zhang. The white robe and white horse holding the Longdan bright silver spear charged ahead, with such speed that it tore a curtain in the water cascade formed by the torrential rain, leaving only one last step from the riverbank. Emperor Longqing's horsetail whisk emitted a five-colored auspicious light, resembling a sea of magic power on the verge of erupting. Just as his arms slowly lifted, amidst the muddy army on the ground, suddenly, a loud voice rang out. This voice drowned out the wind, overshadowed the rain, surpassed the sound of thunder, like a great bell ringing from the heavens. Our army has lost. Chapter 855. Desolate starfall, devastating 1 million. Rainy night. You state. Battlefield. Weapons. The torrential rain poured down like the Milky Way, accompanied by a roar as it drenched the vast earth, turning the ground into a muddy mess in just an hour. Crack! A strange violet lightning streaked across the night sky. The stars and the clouds emitted a piercing white light, casting the entire ancient Central Plains battlefield in a bizarre and uncanny color. The massive army of 1 million troops, like a heavy iron machine, moved with a ponderous and slow maneuver, their ranks steadily retreating. On the opposite bank, on the surface of the Luojian, a tributary of the Fei River, a troop of light cavalry charged forward against the wind and rain. According to the court's original plan, as soon as the rebel cavalry landed, the army would immediately turn around and execute a backward charge. However, under such omens, during the retreat, rumors spread uncontrollably like a plague. Why are we retreating? They had 1 million troops lined up on the bank. What fear was there no matter how many enemy troops there were? Why retreat? Could it be that the celestial anomaly is truly a divine punishment, or did something unexpected happen at the front of the line that forced a swift retreat? The soldiers craned their necks, but the ordinary person's eyesight has limits. Coupled with the adverse weather, how could they see clearly what was happening miles or even tens of miles away in the stormy night? This cumulative effect pushed their nerves to the extreme, eager to understand the current situation and the forthcoming direction. Da-da-da-da. Accompanying the splashing sound of hooves in the waterlogged mud, a fire horse burst through the curtain of rain, carrying the rolling incense and purple energy to the rear of the Central Army. Lu Ji held the heavenly halberd in his hand, his expression serious yet anxious. He stopped his horse before the soldiers. His deep gaze swept over everyone until he gathered chi blood and abruptly spoke, his voice resounding like a great bell throughout the battlefield. Our army has been defeated. Our army has been defeated. Our army has been defeated. Almost simultaneously, these 4 words echoed through different parts of the million-strong army, the waves of sound rising and falling, drowning out all other noises. General Wu, third brother Nyeyuan, his armor in disarray, face full of bloodstains, weakly leaned halfway on the horse's back, crying out to an Imperial Army assistant general ahead. Our army has been defeated. We've been utterly defeated. Defeated? General Wu was taken aback. Is it true? Retreat quickly, retreat quickly. Nye Yuan cried out with bloodshot eyes. Chun Sansi is leading 200,000 Qing country troops to attack. They have set up a second-tier formation from Yunding Palace. Its power surpasses even the Six-Ding Six-Jia formation. The front can't hold it anymore. If we don't retreat now, it will be too late. Rumble. Such disastrous news, accompanied by rolling thunder, weighed heavily in the hearts of the soldiers, causing the tense nerves to completely collapse. No wonder they had to retreat. Turns out, the front was defeated. The ominous sign came true. Our army has been defeated. Run quickly. Chun Sansi is about to come and kill us. Panic erupted explosively. If the million-strong army was originally like a heavy and precise iron machine operating in orderly fashion, then at this moment part of the gears in the machine suddenly failed, initiating a massive chain reaction, until complete collapse. The soldiers were already anxious due to the celestial anomaly that people called divine punishment, and coupled with the inability to verify the situation at the front, only seeing the order to retreat, it truly solidified the notion of a major defeat in their minds. 1,000,000 troops, although numerous, did not mean they were all elite. Most were a mixture cobbled together from various garrisons and newly recruited soldiers, only 2 or 3 parts being the real elite from the capital. And among these less than 3 parts elite, there were the Black Tortoise, White Tiger, and Heavenly Lion 3 battalions, who fled in disarray, abandoning armor as their startled warhorses trampled at will, creating chaos and completely disrupting the Six-Ding Six-Jia formation. They were like a festering wound on a giant's body. Once the rot appeared, it could not stop, only endlessly spreading and expanding. A battalion, 2 battalions, 50,000, 100,000. The army plunged into endless chaos. The very front. Emperor Longqing and others noticed the anomaly immediately. How could this happen? Dan Liangqing recovered quickly from brief astonishment, calmly and urgently commanded, "Quick! Tell them we haven't been defeated. Everyone hold the formation and fight back. Don't panic, don't panic." However, even if the cultivators could fly an earth tunnel with great skills, facing such a vast number, it was impossible to quell the disorder in a short time. Just a few shouts, and among the combined 60,000 troops of the central and rear armies, at least more than half descended into chaos. "What is happening?" Prince Qin loudly questioned. "Who is shouting we've been defeated?" "Your Highness. It seems it was General Lu Ji." "What?" Prince Qin grabbed the assistant general's armor and lifted him. "How is it possible? Has Lu Ji gone mad?" "He hasn't gone mad." Dan Liangqing saw it clearly. "Your General Lu is probably the inside man planted by Chan on our side." "Ah!" In a fury, Prince Qin roared to the sky. "House slaves of 4 surnames. House slaves of 4 surnames. All efforts wasted. All efforts wasted." Dan Liangqing looked at the irreparable chaos before him, unable to hold back his anger, almost yelling, "What have you done?" In the upper ranks of the army, the most taboo is having even a single enemy inside man. It cannot be allowed even one. Chapter 856. "And you actually planted nearly 50,000 people within the great formation I set up. How could it be? How could it be?" Prince Qi was baffled, muttering to himself, "Under the governor mansion, shouldn't Lu Ji hate Chun Sansi the most?" He was a senior brother, followed Sun Xiangzong since childhood, and yet he never obtained the cultivation technique above Martial Saint until his death. Chun Sansi joined just a few years and obtained all inheritances and resources and almost took his military power in Bailiang, nearly costing him his life. Given Lu Ji's character, even if he doesn't kill this person, he would never make him his dog. And Nye Yuan, back at Chibi, if it wasn't for him risking his life to protect me, I would have already died at the hands of Chun the Hunter. How could these 2 brothers be Chun Sansi's people? On the immortal crane, compared to the anger and astonishment of the others, Emperor Longqing's emotions did not fluctuate much. He merely closed his eyes slowly, the thoughts in his heart unknown. In the end, he let out a cold laugh, restraining his tone with a long drawl. The farmer and the snake, Dong Gua and the wolf, everything they have is given by me, yet now they all want to rebel against me, all want to rebel against me. What must I do to satisfy these traitors? Enough! Zhejian, O Zhejian, if you have knowledge in heaven, you can't blame me for not taking care of your descendants. All of this they have brought upon themselves. Your Majesty, there is still an opportunity. After analyzing the situation, Dan Liangqing made the latest deployment. Though the rear is chaotic, I still have about 200,000 troops at the front maintaining order. And Chun Sansi's forces are ultimately only tens of thousands. The front can still proceed according to the original plan. I will lead a few senior apprentices to kill the two traitors Lu and Nye, trying our best to salvage the chaos. With these words, he then rode his flying sword towards the chaotic rear. Emperor Longqing and Ling Kuei remained stationed at the front. Prince Qin drew his long sword and shouted, "The whole army prepare!" He stared fixedly at the white-robed white horse, dropping the sword in his hand with a roar as it set foot on the shore. "Kill!" Dong dong dong. The war drums pounded. The well-prepared Six-Ding Six-Jia Great Formation emitted various spirit lights, blessing the 200,000 troops at the forefront, while heavenly pillars from Kunyang City flew in with rolling spiritual power, embedding themselves deep into the ground, resonating with the soldiers, forming golden light barriers, like beast traps falling from the sky, aiming to trap the rebel army within. Even amidst the chaos at the rear, orchestrated by the white-robed schemes on paper, the confrontation between the two armies on the riverbank still favored the court. 200,000 against 20,000. The brothers at the back couldn't see the situation up front, but they could tell the number of the enemy army wasn't large. Therefore, even with natural anomalies causing panic, they managed to maintain formations, forming walls of copper and iron advancing forward. If viewed from the air, the vast difference between the rebel cavalry disembarking from the floating bridge and the 200,000 troops in formation was clear. If the 200,000 troops were a dark sea, then the mere 20,000 rebels were but a slender stream, destined to be devoured once it collided with the vast ocean. The formidable military formation before us. Chun Sansi and his subordinates naturally saw it clearly. In the process of running, Sima Yao transformed into a being close to a demon beast, moving with incredible speed, tightly following behind the white swan horse. He held his long knife, looking at the impregnable military formation ahead, with only 4 words echoing in his mind. A foolish attempt to fight something unbeatable, but with the situation as it was, he had no choice but to risk everything. The first wave of cavalry charged onto land, and the mighty enemy formation also began an assault with the help of the 81 heavenly pillars, like an immense steel chariot advancing heavily towards the mantis ahead, seeming as if at the moment of collision it would grind the rebel army to dust. But at this time, a single white horse suddenly accelerated from within the army formation, reaching incredible speeds, quickly distancing itself significantly. In the torrential rain, the court army's vision no longer held the rebel formation, but only a solitary figure, tearing through the rain, charging forward, leading the charge. During the run, Qian Sun's spiritual power erupted, releasing dazzling spirit light in the night, rushing towards the enemy, like a meteor streaking through the sky, crashing into a crouching giant beast. The court soldiers faintly felt some indescribable resonance between the white robe and the sky full of stars in the night. The old dynasty has died. A new court shall rise. The figure on the white horse began to speak. A deep and domineering voice shattered the raindrops and caused the metal and weapons to vibrate endlessly, making everyone's eardrums ache and their minds buzz. The great Shang dynasty's destiny is exhausted. I am Chun Sansi of Pyong, today by the mandate of heaven, bringing divine retribution to seize the life of the great Shang, and any who block me oppose destiny, punish without mercy. Chun the Hunter. Prince Qin stood on the cloud tower, roaring with a fierce expression. Stop your nonsense and boasting here. Today by the banks of the Luojian River will be your grave. Chun the Hunter. After your death, your eldest son will be enslaved, and your wives and concubines sent to the Imperial Music Bureau for the pleasure of the world. Whoosh! Between heaven and earth, the storm grew fiercer. The old dynasty has died. A new court shall rise. The common people support me. Chapter 857. Just as the thunder roared, Chun Sansi raised the Xianzhu high, and waves of mystical energy, condensed by the power of the common people, surged forth. His voice was like a boulder striking the ground, deafening. Zhou Tian star battle formation of the 3 enclosures and 28 mansions. Rise? The word rise echoed, and from all directions around the ancient battlefield, the long-dormant array flags emerged from the ground. These array flags were deployed in advance by Chun Sansi at the very beginning of the Battle of Fei River, and now they were all enveloped in mystical energy, levitating in midair. The position and arrangement of the array flags perfectly mirrored the Milky Way in the sky, complete with the 3 enclosures and 28 mansions, resembling a great river flowing, encompassing the million-strong court army within. The myriad stars in the night sky awakened at this moment, their dazzling white light flickering like countless shimmering frosted suns. Form the formation, Chun Sansi commanded, his voice echoing. The 20,000 cavalry behind him nimbly maneuvered their positions, while above them spiraled vast amounts of mystical energy, trailing behind the white horse. From the formation layout, the array flags spanned several hundred miles in radius, representing the 3 enclosures and 28 mansions in the sky, yet their group of cavalry was not part of it, seeming like an abrupt, uninvited guest. This scene, too, aligned with the heavenly phenomenon. At the edge of the abyss-like night sky, glaring crimson light began to gleam, illuminating the distant ground in a bizarre blood-red hue. This streak of crimson was swiftly advancing from the southwest toward the Fei Shui battlefield. Comet! Look quickly, everyone! Such an unusual heavenly phenomenon was naturally clearly visible to everyone. Shooting star. Thieving star. Various names were blurted out from the mouths of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. With the descent of the comet, there must be a divine punishment. It truly is an ominous sign indeed. In midair, Emperor Longqing, dressed in a billowing Taoist robe, stood on an immortal crane, witnessing the scene before him. As he swiftly recalled all the formations from the Miracle Soldier's heavenly book, he finally found the corresponding description and realized what the white robe intended to do. He had not been passive all along. Immediately, he summoned the Imperial Jade Seal into his hand, attempting to sever the connection between the celestial stars and the ground's array flags, but he failed. On the body of the white robe was another supreme treasure, resisting the suppression of the Imperial Jade Seal and maintaining the operation of the formation. This was the treasure Chun Sansi obtained from the leader of the Red Eyebrow Army, Liang Jinian, after the 4 crossings of Hengzi in the Ming state, which was a part of the heavenly book. It had deceived them for a long time. Stop him quickly. After the failure, without any hesitation, Emperor Longqing flicked his sleeve, and the immortal crane beneath him let out a piercing cry, flapping its wings and diving toward the ground with divine speed. Regrettably, the army had retreated 20 miles earlier, and they were in the middle of the Central Army, 40 miles from the riverbank. How could they make it in time? Emperor Longqing could only watch powerlessly as the white robe completed the final ceremony of the formation, his resonant voice echoing across the wilderness. Great wilderness! Starfall! Among the 3 enclosures and 28 mansions, Shangyuan refers to the Taiwei constellation, and the center of the Taiwei constellation has the Yellow Emperor's hub, and the 5 Emperors constellation like Song Emperor Lingwei Yang in the east, representing the destiny of the world and the heavenly sun of the present day. The comet, a crimson moon-like outsider, burst into the 5 Emperors constellation of the Taiwei constellation with overwhelming brilliance. The 5 Emperor stars within the 5 Emperors constellation extinguished simultaneously. At that moment, Emperor Longqing, Chao Kai, felt as if something indescribable within him was severed by an enigmatic force, leaving him hollow for several breaths of time. Then, under the gaze of millions, this celestial outsider, which should have passed by swiftly, unexpectedly stopped, hovering over the fasciae, its eerie crimson light intensifying into the likeness of a red sun. On the vast earth below, the array flags resonated with each other, and the mystical energy imbued within them shot into the sky like strands of silk, tightly entwining the red sun, preventing it from leaving the heavens and earth until it corrected its path, plummeting toward the fasciae. The sky collapsed. A crimson sun descended from the heavens, enlarging rapidly in the eyes of millions, filling their pupils entirely. Great wilderness starfall. Divine punishment has arrived. At about 10,000 feet from the ground, the crimson sun exploded with a roar, transforming into countless blood-colored stars accelerating toward the earth. Rainy night, the Fey River, the battlefield, clashing metals. The dense demonic stars, trailing brilliant red tails, fell to the earth, becoming a vast red meteor shower. Even though these stars split off from the red sun, each one was as large as a mountain, obscuring the sky. Amidst the ground shaking and mountains trembling, the first blood-red mountain landed fiercely, followed by the second and the third, until the sky cracked and the gods perished. Boom! Stars crashed down one after another. Celestial pillars crumbled in response, creating increasingly more sinkholes on the barren land, and countless court soldiers were crushed into pulp under the stars' impact. Armor shattered, war horses wailed, blood and mud flew everywhere. Iron lances broke. Divine punishment. Divine punishment has truly come. The Shang dynasty has run out of fortune. This is heaven punishing us. The comet crossing, a once-in-a-century spectacle. The falling of the crimson stars was unheard of in ancient times. In this moment, the 200,000-strong army utterly collapsed, along with the already chaotic tens of thousands of troops at the rear, a million-strong army. The army collapsed like an avalanche. In the face of divine punishment, how could mortals resist? The court soldiers discarded their helmets and armor, fleeing in panic. Given the immense numbers and dense personnel, the ensuing chaos only led to uncontrollable trampling and crushing, creating an indescribably tragic situation. Chapter 858. The world does not want people to live. Where's your man? To address the official, he's still sick in bed. When do you plan to pay your taxes? Please be assured, we will not miss the final deadline. In the darkness, Chun Sansi heard a conversation between a man and a woman. The man was aggressive, while the woman was pleading for leniency. Hiss! He struggled to open his eyelids, and what came into view was an entirely unfamiliar environment. Where is this? Wasn't I working overtime? Hiss! Chun Sansi's head suddenly throbbed with pain, as a tide of memories that didn't belong to him flooded his mind, forcing him to accept a fact. Have I transmigrated? This place was Payang County, a remote small county in the Dashing dynasty. The original inhabitant lived outside the county town in Yanbian village. He was a full-time, impoverished scholar whose family survived on his father's hunting, leading a barely acceptable life. Until half a year ago, after his father set off for the mountains at night, he never returned. With the loss of the family's pillar and the failure of the original inhabitant's child exam, the double blow led to a serious illness. That's when Chun Sansi transmigrated. Ah, Brother Sure, you're awake. A woman, carrying a bowl of medicinal soup, entered the house. She was overjoyed to see the young man waking up. She hurried to the bedside, her already ill-fitting garment shaking violently as she ran, as if there were two rabbits tumbling inside. This woman was named Gu Xinlan. She was a child bride bought by the original inhabitant's father when he was very young. She had always taken care of the original inhabitant like an elder sister, staying loyal even after his father's death and through his illness. However, the original inhabitant seemed to have looked down on this sister quite a bit. Being the descendant of criminals, she was sent to the frontier and nearly sold to a brothel, making her the lowest of the low class. Considering himself far superior, the original inhabitant had believed he would one day pass the exams and marry a well-to-do woman, becoming a successful man. He thought she wasn't good enough for him and treated her like a servant on a regular basis. Brother Sure, how are you feeling? Gu Xinlan sat down by the bed and placed her hand on the young man's forehead, exclaiming with surprise, "The fever's gone?" Chun Sansi sat up and tried to move his body. Aside from some weakness, there was nothing seriously wrong with him, as the illness had disappeared with his transmigration. Truly the blessing of the gods. Gu Xinlan was visibly relieved. Brother Sure, you drink your medicine first. I'll go fix you some food. Watching her walk away, her tortoise-like hips ready to burst from her clothing, Chun Sansi spent 10 minutes digesting his current situation. Since I'm here, I might as well make the best of it. He'd always been quick to adapt to his environment. Since he'd come to this world, he needed to figure out how to live well. He picked up the bitter medicinal soup and drank it all at once, then went to the next room. He saw Gu Xinlan almost entirely inside the rice bin. Just her hips stuck out as she struggled to scoop out some grain. After much effort, she managed to gather a small handful of millet. Since the death of the original inhabitant's father, the family had lost its source of income. Moreover, the original inhabitant's recent illness had completely depleted their savings, bringing them to the brink of utter destitution. Just now, was that the tax collector for the autumn taxes? Chun Sansi stood behind Sister Lan. How much do they want? 3 taels of silver, Gu Xinlan replied. 3 taels. Chun Sansi inhaled sharply. Are they including father in the count? Yes. Gu Xinlan nodded gently. The petty official said that since they hadn't found father's body, he couldn't be declared dead and his registration couldn't be cancelled. We still have to pay the full tax, including the hunting tax too. Chun Sansi cursed inwardly. The oppressive taxes of the Dashing dynasty were severe, and with frequent wars in recent years, the taxes had only increased. Brother Sure, don't worry. Worry was evident in Gu Xinlan's eyes, though she tried to reassure him. I've recently got some work at a tailor's shop and, along with doing laundry for people, we should be able to scrape together something. Clearly, the original inhabitant was completely financially dependent. Even after his father's death, he was reluctant to seek another livelihood and preferred to have Sister Lan work herself to the bone. Not even considering whether he was cut out for it, Chun Sansi felt rather speechless. He couldn't even pass the exam to become a scholar, yet he was still dreaming of one day passing the imperial examination. Wasn't that the talk of a delusional person? He could no longer continue this way. He needed to find a means of making a living. Otherwise, if he couldn't pay the taxes, the men would be sent away for forced labor, and the women would be sold into brothels, a fate worse than death. I'll go cook rice. Gu Xinlan busied herself with the task. Before long, the meal was prepared. 2 bowls of a staple food made from a mixture of millet and chaff. Not even pickled vegetables were served. This was probably the last bit of grain in the house. Chun Sansi noticed that his bowl had a higher proportion of millet compared to Gu Xinlan's, which was mostly chaff. Chaff, which was the husk of grains such as rice, wheat, and soybeans, was rough and difficult to swallow. In the modern age, it was essentially used as livestock fodder. Eat, Brother Sure. Gu Xinlan picked up her chopsticks and ate with small, deliberate bites, her fingers visibly red and swollen, the joints showing small sores. This was the result of washing too many clothes for others. As a woman, she did everything she could to provide for the family, short of the backbreaking labor only men could do. Chun Sansi saw this and remembered it. His head bent as he ate the hard-to-swallow chaff. Brother Sure. Midway through the meal, Gu Xinlan put down her chopsticks and hesitantly spoke. Actually, aside from the tax silver, we still owe Aunt Lee 2 coins for medical expenses. Otherwise, I'm just suggesting if you could just recover a bit more, maybe you could also find some work to do? If we can't gather enough silver for the tax by the end of the month, I heard they'll take people away. As she spoke, she quietly watched his expression, her fingers anxiously picking at the corner of her clothes. Each time this matter was brought up before, Brother Sure would fly into a rage, saying things like how a scholar shouldn't engage in menial labor. Eat your food. Chun Sansi shoveled the food into his mouth, quietly pondering his finances. Gu Xinlan didn't dare to bring it up again. She quietly finished her meal, swiftly washed the pots and pans, and hurried off to her work as a female laborer. Chun Sansi remained seated, deeply considering his options. Ancient times were not like modern society, where mere physical strength could find you work. His family owned no land, and without any academic title from his studies, the only thing left to do was to hunt. As a child, he had learned a few tricks from his father, and although he had let his skills atrophy over the years, he still had the basic foundations. It shouldn't be hard to get started again. Moreover, since he had to pay hunting tax anyway, he might as well hunt. The house still had an old bow left. Chun Sansi went to the inner room and took down the longbow covered in dust from the wall. It should still be usable. But I have a bow with no arrows. I need to find a way to get some money to buy arrows. In order to survive, the household had sold nearly all of its books, leaving only the four treasures of the study, which the original owner valued as his life, as possibly the last things of some value. Without any hesitation, Chun Sansi packed up the writing brush, ink, paper, and inkstone and took them away. Even though they were all low-grade items, they sold for a total of 200 copper coins, roughly equivalent to 2 silver coins. Enough to show that poor scholars and rich warriors was not an absolute. Studying was also an expensive endeavor. With the money in hand, Chun Sansi went to the market stall that catered to hunters. "Little Sure, you're here to buy arrows?" The stall owner, Uncle Su, was from a military household and an old acquaintance of Shure's father. "Are you preparing to hunt in the mountains instead of studying?" "Yes. I'm looking to buy a few old arrows." Chun Sansi picked out 5 second-hand willow leaf arrows from the stall. "How much?" 70 coins. Chun Sansi bargained. "Uncle Su, old arrows aren't worth that much. 50 coins at most." "All right, 50 coins it is." Old Yu was straightforward. "I say, you should have gone to the mountains a long time ago, learned a fair amount of your father's skills, at least enough to make ends meet. But instead, you insisted on reading useless books. Do you think a kid from a poor family like yours could become an official?" "Uncle speaks the truth." Chun Sansi didn't argue, and after making sure the arrows had no quality issues, he strung them on the bowstring and aimed at the ground to check. Suddenly, several lines of small characters appeared before his eyes. Skill, Archery, Entry Level. Progress, 20/100. Chapter 859. Does Longqing Dare to Die? A Spectacular Collapse. Unfolding grandly on the ancient battleground of the wilderness. Strange celestial phenomena. A bandit star falls. Amidst mountains of blood red descending from the heavens, shattering the heavenly pillars and grinding countless comrades into pulp, the mental defense of 1,000,000 soldiers collapses completely. The sound of weapons breaking and armor falling to the ground, mixed with the thunderous roar and the crashing of falling stars, churned the landscape into upheaval, as if the heavens and earth were crumbling. Led by white robes and white horses, 20,000 cavalry also charged into the enemy army, amidst countless falling bloody fragments, in chaos. Nearly 100 leagues away in Kunyang City, the 80,000 soldiers stationed there charged out frantically, with eyes blood red, entering a berserk state. The Imperial Army's formations were in chaotic disarray, trampling over one another, their minds filled with only "our army has been defeated," seeing only the image of heavenly punishment from falling stars in the wilderness, with not a shred of resistance, nor would they obey any command, all just fleeing for their lives like startled birds and beasts. Though the enemy was vast, the battlefield of the Fei River was now a one-sided massacre. In the midst of the chaos, Lu Ji raised his hand and a massive altar descended from the heavens. He tread upon incense fire magical artifact, surrounded by hazy purple energy, swinging the sharp heavenly halberd to continually reap the lives of the enemy army. Behind this robust figure, a twisted shrine faintly appeared, then transformed into purple light pouring over his head, warping his features, with pupils void of any self-awareness. "Boss!" Nyeyuan, who was initially wreaking havoc everywhere, saw this scene and his expression turned heavy, commanding the soldiers of Xuanwu camp Scatter! General Lu is possessed. Stay away from him. This is Dan Liangcheng, leading two fellow cultivators, quickly recognized the scene before him. The evil god path? How many people has he killed? The fellow cultivator marveled endlessly. This person's incense fire divine Tao cultivation had long reached the critical point of suppression from heaven and earth, yet he was deliberately suppressing his breakthrough. It's no use, the person is ruined. Dan Liangcheng said with pity. Eager to improve cultivation, he has sold himself entirely to the evil god. The best outcome is merely becoming a puppet believer of the evil god. Let's go, before he satisfies his bloodlust. He won't distinguish between friend and foe. There's no need to fight him desperately. However, it was too late. Lu Ji on the ground suddenly looked up at the sky, his pupils resembling that of a long-starved fierce beast spotting fresh blood meal. He leapt up holding his weapon. Dan Liangcheng and others had no escape, and could only fight for their lives together. Not far away, Sima Yao, with a wolf's head on a human body, slashed with a blade while using claws to kill, even biting people's heads apart in a moment of frenzy. Demon, a demon! Heavenly punishment! Amid various chaotic images overlapping, the imperial army no longer possessed the power to turn the tide, collapsing like a mountain falling until utterly defeated. Yet, in this once-in-a-millennium chaotic battleground, by the banks of the Fei River, there was a particularly quiet area. Under a curtain of bloody rain, three figures stood in a triangular formation. One wore white robes on a white horse, holding a long spear. Another shouldered a broad sword, standing on a mountain of corpses. A third stood on an immortal crane, suspended in mid-air. On the battlefield filled with lamenting wails, the torrents of millions of enemy and friendly cavalry distinctly bypassed the three, as if they were towering peaks standing firm amidst the vast waters, dividing the expansive currents. The three stood in silent confrontation, as if everything in the world paused still in this moment, transforming into an ink painting. Not until over 10 breaths later did the scroll's imagery finally start to move. Buzz! Without any excess words, the netherworld broadsword struck first. The Ling family's ancestor, Ling Kuei's long-accumulated power erupted vehemently, having already surged forward dozens of feet somehow. His form seemed to gain the might of a tiger with wings during his sprint. Inside, the 16 Jingshen awoke successively, catalyzing the contained spiritual power through complex meridian operations into immense true power, directing it to the sword's edge, the netherworld broadsword initially dragging on the ground, enveloped by the extreme nether river true power and the compressed to the utmost and instantaneously erupting sword Tao true intent intermingled. From the rain-saturated thick earth, rose a black crescent moon with a thunderous roar. A blur in sight, as if in the midst of the vast bloody stars, another black tide moon descended from the heavens, shrouding and plummeting down the sky. Amidst the mud and filth, the white robe let the torrential rain fall upon his body. Yet no matter how large the raindrops, they evaporated instantly, turning into a teal mist rising, as if within his body an illuminating sun was gradually rising. The brain god, named Zhu Yuanzi, styled Dao Du, measures 1 inch 1 fun, in white robes. The hair god, named Zuanfua, styled Dao Hung, measures 2 inches 1 fun, in black robes. The right kidney god, named Xiang Tao, styled Dao Yu, measures 3 inches 5 fun, in robes white or black. The spleen god, named Bao Yuan Quan, styled Dao Qian, measures 7 inches 3 fun, in pure yellow. One after another spirit light suddenly unleashed, until the last of the central 8 scenic gods, Bao Yuan Quan, awoke, the upper and middle 2 divisions of 16 Jingshen fully integrated, with layers upon layers of true power stacking infinitely, reaching the true power middle stage. Fire element. Boom! On the silver spear, the firelight suddenly ignited. A magnificent blazing sun of Qian Yao unexpectedly rose from the muddy earth, clashing mightily with the falling black moon from above. The two vast and immense true powers entwined and slaughtered each other, creating a tumultuous storm in the downpour. Layers of mud waves surged up, The area within 100 feet trembled violently, with twisted storms surging and rolling. Buried armor and weapons in the muddy pools were uprooted, forming a tornado around them. Chapter 860. In a brief exchange, under the fearsome impact, Ling Kuei slid back hundreds of yards in the sticky mud, leaving 2 shocking furrows on the ground with his legs. The white horse under Chun Sansi erupted with all its spiritual power to counteract the force, its front hooves raised high as if ready to soar, while the Luojian River behind him exploded into waves several meters high from the aftermath. True power middle stage. Feeling the residual force on the sword blade, Ling Kuei steadied his posture and squinted heavily, looking at the white figure that seemed somewhat blurred in the heavy rain. Emperor, be careful, he is indeed at the true power middle stage. While the two were probing each other, Emperor Longqing also quietly made his move. Standing on the wing of the immortal crane, holding a horsetail whisk like a golden comet falling onto the wasteland, he sealed with both hands and gently tossed the whisk forward, immediately enlarging it hundreds of times, thousands of exotic beast hairs forming chains from all directions to entangle. All moves or spells happen in an instant. Chun Sansi was still in the process of dissipating force after dealing with Ling Kuei, human and horse both raised in midair, only seeing the world change color, countless white cords binding towards the ground. His left hand flashed with spirit light. A golden magic bow quietly appeared, directly placing the long-dan bright silver spear, about a meter long, on the bowstring, his right hand pulling the bowstring like a full moon. The mystical patterns carved on the golden light magic bow surface lit up one by one like streams passing through. Waves of spiritual energy transmitted to the bowstring, intertwined with the fiery fire element true power. In this moment, the originally inert long-dan bright silver spear transformed into a living divine beast, its fierce gun blade twisting and turning into a beast head in people's eyes, the spear shaft moving in the void, as if the body were desperately trying to break free, causing the gale to swirl. The bow core of the golden magic bow showing cracks, all the forces of the world concentrated at one point, unable to suppress. Chun Sansi released his right hand. The bowstring burst, the bow core shattered, the fiery flame vermilion bird unleashed, flying skyward with a resonant phoenix call shaking the viscera, powerful reaction force sinking him a meter deep. Boom! The thousands of ropes made from spiritual beast hairs instantly incinerated under the intense true power. The vermilion bird, unstoppable, spread fiery wings, eager to devour the long-bearded elder atop the immortal crane completely. Before they touched, the feathers of the immortal crane began to crisp and blacken, emitting painful cries, the beast's body stiffening almost ready to fall to the ground. But just at this moment, a sonorous dragon roar filled the heavens and earth, like descending from the 9 heavens or echoing from the abyss, making it unclear where it originated. Appearing last in the hands of Emperor Longqing, Konglong descended carrying the mighty magic sea, crashed onto the vermilion bird. Thud! Accompanied by a dull thud, Kong Jinlong bit into the throat of the vermilion bird, the golden light extinguishing the flame, the vermilion bird bleakly perishing, the silver spear spinning back to the ground, caught by a powerful fiery hand, the resultant wind upheaving the earth. Chun Sansi could no longer maintain balance. Human and horse flew back dozens of yards, the white swan horse dissolving into spirit light and entering the storage ring in midair, while he rolled several times and landed heavily on one knee supported by his strong physique. In a life-and-death struggle, there's no respite, not even time to breathe as under the fragmenting sky stars another round of black tide moon swept forth. Emperor Longqing in midair pinching seals casting spells. The 7 stars dragon abyss sword pierced down. Great strength talisman. Divine speed talisman. The talismans prepared in advance activated simultaneously. Chun Sansi's internal fire element true power operated the circulation at overload, flames entwining the long spear yet again, accurately blocking the sword edge concealed in the black tide moon, but could not react in time to the 7 stars dragon abyss sword. Thick earth decision condensed. The captured body protecting golden light shield talisman invoked. Bang bang! Thick earth crumbled. Golden light shattered. Only then could Chun Sansi finally grasp the front half of the spear shaft horizontally in front to block, narrowly thwarting the sword edge, but his body was again uncontrollably flung, repeatedly smashing multiple massive stones on the riverbank before plunging heavily into the Luojian River. When the strength of both parties isn't significantly different, this is the so-called two fists can't beat four hands. One possesses a heavenly-grade spiritual root, years of qi refining perfection, nurtured by blood pills refined from millions of lives in Yunzhou, obtaining foundation establishment cultivation, along with one of the treasures of the divine continent, the Seven Stars Dragon Abyss Sword. The other was once a genius of heavenly water swordsmanship, severing his future for a more powerful nether river-breathing method. Neither is mediocre. Boom! With a rumble like thunder, after 2 breaths underwater, the white robe burst out, soaring skyward, engaging Emperor Long Qing and Ling Kuei in battle in midair above the water. Night curtain, torrential rain, star fragments, thunder. Kong Jin True Dragon danced wildly, fiery flame candle dragon vied. Black tide moon continually swept between the 2 dragons, presenting a scene of dual dragons battling for the heavens, black moon shifting. Little rascal! Ling Kuei wielded the sword with both hands, every strike accompanied by the full force of his nether river true power, every slash condensed with 100 years ultimate sword Tao of martial arts. To reach such a realm, in their eyes there were no fixed forms or moves. The black blade wildly bombarded the opponent's vital points like a living entity.